unreal. It's like you see in the movies. These things happen to people, and you never would guess that they would happen to you, and then they do, and you're like, wow, I can't believe this just happened. I can't believe I've raised $124,000 for my invention. I can't believe people actually like my invention that I invented. I can't believe this is happening right now. And I'll tell you what, it was only $124,000, but I felt like $1 million.
Welcome to the Invention Stories podcast, where we share stories of inventors who turn their idea into a product. Please visit our website at www.inventionstories.com. And now, from the Invention Stories podcast World Headquarters Studios in Morro Bay, California, is our host, Robert Baer.
Welcome to the Invention Stories podcast. I am your host, Robert Baer, and thank you for listening. This is the second part of our interview with Spencer Trotter, who has invented the Anywhere fridge. He is on the line today from Roswell, New Mexico, so let's get back to it. Spencer, how was the prototype process, and how did you decide on what size to build the Anywhere fridge?
Now, that was actually, I'll tell you what, that was quite an endeavor. That was one of my entrepreneurial big decisions as an inventor. You know, we've had several prototypes that we've constructed, and the size was imperative to get right. I mean, it was almost obligatory that we got the right size of the Anywhere fridge, because nobody wants to lug around some big bulky item. First of all, it doesn't look cool. It's heavy. It's bulky. And nobody wants to do that. It's not very convenient. So, you know, we initially had a 40 by 40, which was my very first prototype that I fabricated myself out of materials from Home Depot. 40 by 40 is way too big.
40 by 40 is huge. I mean, it must have weighed a ton.
So, way too heavy. And then we had a 30 by 30, still too big, still too heavy. And the problem that lied was we were saying, okay, we have to make it at least 30 by 30 because of the fact that the solar panels need to be big enough and have enough space to extract enough power from the sun to power the refrigeration unit. And a 30 by 30 solar panel was barely cutting the power supply that we needed to power the unit inside of the Anywhere fridge. The unit inside of the Anywhere fridge needs approximately 104 watts to be powered. 30 by 30 solar panel barely did it. It was about 100 watts. We said, the heck, the other 4 watts. You know, maybe it'll work. Didn't work. So I said to myself, well, man, I can't make this thing a 40 by 40 or a 30 by 30. It's just simply too big. Nobody's going to want to buy it. Nobody's going to want to lug it around. And so I thought to myself, well, why don't I simply make solar panels that slide out from the sides? Therefore, we can make this thing much smaller and still have the sufficient amount of power to power the refrigeration unit inside of it. So now we have a 20 by 20, which is the one you see on our website now, and with slide-out solar panels. And the slide-out solar panels equal up to 120 watts. So it actually gives the Anywhere fridge more power than it needs. So it enabled it to have plug-in outlets, such as a thumb drive outlet, an AC outlet, so you can now plug your cell phones into it to charge, your laptop to it and then charge. And the extra wattage that it's getting from the sun charges the battery, thus powering the supplies you can plug your cell phone into.
One of the tools inventors have today is crowdfunding. I'd like to ask you about it because you did so well. What's your secret? How did you achieve such great success?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I'll tell you what, now this is a very tricky, because crowdfunding is it's a bit tricky with crowdfunding. And the reason why I say tricky is because of the fact that you have to not only have a campaign which markets your product and or business, but you also have to have something attractive, have something that people want. You have to make it look attractive. You have to pay for the appropriate video, the appropriate cameras. Nobody's going to buy something that is shot off of maybe say an iPhone. You know, they want to see something in a professional manner. So I would say, you know, when I started my IndieGoGo campaign, I didn't quite have the necessary resources to get all that done. My initial IndieGoGo campaign was not as great as I would want it to be, but nonetheless, I feel like it was great marketing. I set it up in a way where it grasped people's interests. It made them want to know more about it, want to read more about it, want to look at more pictures about it. And I didn't have very much to work with. I did have my iPhone camera, as a matter of fact. Took a couple pictures with my iPhone, put it on a campaign. But I think it's more about being able to attract people's interests, because there's tons of IndieGoGo campaigns, and you're not going to attract someone to your campaign unless it looks like something that's unique, looks like something that's never been done before, looks like something that people can use, not just something people necessarily want, but something that people need. And I felt that the Anywhere Fridge was more than a want, but a need, because the Anywhere Fridge is more than just another product, but a necessity for a better lifestyle. And so that's what I shot for in my initial IndieGoGo campaign, which raised about $124,000 within 1 month.
$124,000, Spencer. That's awesome. I'm sure every inventor out there today who wants to run a campaign dreams of obtaining that kind of success. This might be the dumbest question I've ever asked, but Spencer, how did that make you feel?
Wow. That, I'll tell you, Robert, that feeling was unreal. It's like you see in the movies. These things happen to people, and you never would guess that they would happen to you. And then they do. And you're like, wow, I can't believe this just happened. I can't believe I've raised $124,000 for my invention. I can't believe people actually like my invention that I invented. I can't believe this is happening right now. And I'll tell you what, it was only $124,000, but I felt like $1 million.
$124,000 is a ton of money.
It's a lot of money. I say only because of the fact that in the business world, $124,000 is unfortunately a bit insignificant when it comes to inventing a new product and putting it on the market. But nonetheless, that is a fantastic amount to raise, because I've never had that much money in my life in my hands. All of a sudden, I had this much money in real life, and I'm like, wow, now I can finally accomplish my dream in getting this invention out there on the market to help people, and not just people in America, but people in other countries who otherwise wouldn't have access to power and or refrigeration.
Well, let me ask you, have you ever invented anything before?
Absolutely. I've had other, in my opinion, insignificant inventions. And the reason why I use the word insignificant is because of the fact that there are products in which won't really make a difference and an impact in the world in general, meaning their products, they're more of a want product. They're more of a fad. It's a fad. Products that are a fad, they're a phase, they're going to fade out, they're a want, they're not necessarily a need. And I stuck with the Anywhere Fridge and just the Anywhere Fridge for all these years, going on about 15 years now, because of the fact that I believe in the Anywhere Fridge passionately. The Anywhere Fridge has literally been half of my life. I'm 33 years old. I basically started it when I was 15 years old. And, it's been half of my life. I've been working on this thing half my life, and that's how passionate I am about it, because of the fact that the Anywhere Fridge is like I mentioned before, is it's more than just another product or a want, but it is that necessity for a better lifestyle for people that don't even have much, people, it's great for, your average soccer mom going grocery shopping. If the kids, not having to rush home, put it right in the refrigerator. It's good for people in remote countries and rural areas who don't have access to refrigeration and power. People that are in organizations such as Doctors Without Borders and Doctors Worldwide and the Red Cross. People that need to keep vaccines cold and or refrigerated, maintaining a certain temperature to inoculations and all that. And it's more than, the Anywhere Fridge is more than even my invention. It's more than Spencer inventing this cool product called the Anywhere Fridge that's portable. The Anywhere Fridge is beyond me. It's a world changer. It's a game changer. It's going to literally change the lives of millions of people around the entire world.
You're listening to the Invention Stories podcast. I'm Robert Baer, and we have Spencer Trotter on the line. He's telling the story behind the Anywhere Fridge. Please visit our website at inventionstories.com. Now, Spencer, how did you decide upon a manufacturer?
We actually have a very strategic company. They're based out of Milwaukee, and it's an American-owned company, and they actually own a facility in Shenzhen, China. And so this American company owns this company in Shenzhen, China, which is American-owned in China. So therefore, you're getting quality parts. It's American monitored. It's only secured. It has quality parts. Some of our parts are actually being imported from Australia and being assembled in Shenzhen, China, because of the fact that we want to make the Anywhere fridge as great as possible. We don't just want to slap together another product that breaks easily, wears down in 5 years. The Anywhere fridge is so advanced, we're using only the latest technology for it. For instance, we're using the solar panels. Your traditional solar panels are blue. Those are the traditional solar panels, which we had, gee whiz, time passes by fast, more than 16 years ago. We are now using the satellite solar panels, which are high-efficiency solar panels, which extract 75% more power than your traditional solar panels, which is why we're able to get the amount of power we're able to get into the small unit. Not only are we using the latest solar panels, we're also using what we call a phononic solid-state compressor. And that is better than your traditional compressor. It does not use Freon. It's a solid-state, which can freeze 15 degrees minus Celsius. We're also using a very high insulated wall, which your typical insulation for a refrigerator is about 6 R factor. For those of you that don't know R factor, it's the resistance factor for the refrigerant to escape from the actual compartment. The Anywhere fridge, that's the standard. Anywhere fridge has 12 R factor, which is double the amount of the refrigerant. So all of our materials and so forth are just the latest technology because of the nature of the Anywhere fridge and how it's portable.
You know, it seems like you'd have to learn a whole lot to create such a product. How did you learn about everything, and didn't you find it overwhelming?
And that is actually another great question. You know, I did have to do that. I had to immerse myself into my product. I had to do my due diligence. I had to study on the R factors of 6 and 12 and 14 and so forth. I had to study about thermodynamics, thermoelectric, Freon compressors, solid state compressors, solar panels, high efficiency solar panels, power, voltage. I did have to do all that. Geometry, especially geometry. I mean, the Anywhere fridge is the basis of geometry because of the nature that it collapses. It has to fold up perfectly. Everything has to be 100% perfect on the Anywhere fridge, because if it's not, and if it's off by just a little bit, it's simply not going to work. It's not going to fold up to 5 inches flat. It's not going to fold up perfectly. It's not going to close perfectly. It's not going to be airtight and watertight and refrigerant tight perfectly. Everything had to be perfect. And so I did my research. I researched things. I did my due diligence as far as getting the schematics on solar panels, compressors, solid state compressors, aerogel, insulation, all that stuff. And I needed to do that, because if I did not do that, then I would have been remiss in not doing it. My research helped the engineering firm that I ultimately hired to get it professionally manufactured and injection molded. Without the research that I did for 4 years on creating my product, my mechanical design and electrical engineers would not have been able to put it together. And I actually had to change my design quite a bit. I don't know if you can tell, but if you look at my very first prototype or my blue prototype on IndieGoGo compared to my white injection molded professional prototype, my original prototype collapses differently than my new prototype. And it was necessary. Not that we couldn't make my initial design work, but we wanted to go off a design that was easier for the consumer to handle. Whereas the white collapsing design is simply easier for your average consumer to fold down and fold up. Whereas the old one was easy, but a bit too complicated, too many loose parts. My new design made the Anywhere fridge much more durable and sustainable.
Man, Spencer, that's just incredible. I look at your Anywhere fridge and I just can't even imagine trying to comprehend even a quarter of it. I always admire inventors who really push the limits, but I think if I was going to invent something, it'd probably be something a lot more simplistic. I wanted to ask you, though, did you have another job? Did you work full-time? Did you work part-time? And how did you know when to quit? Or, what was your thought process about keeping the bills paid?
Well, now, here's the thing. I'm going to answer that question as I'm answering all the questions with complete honesty. And I want to make this very clear for our viewers out there. If you're an entrepreneur and you're embarking on an invention that you're passionate about, what I've done is I would work jobs in this process. I worked a ton of different jobs. I mean, I used to work at a healthcare company for 7 years while I was inventing the Anywhere Fridge, while I was doing all this IndieGoGo stuff. And what I would do, I think the trick to it is what I did is I would go to my job. I would focus on my job at work. I would do my job. But then when I got home, I wouldn't just go home and make me dinner and make dinner for my stepdaughter and my wife and go to bed and go to work the next morning. I wouldn't do that. When I would go home, I would do my quote honeydews. I would make the dinner. I'd feed my family. But then after that, I would make the Anywhere Fridge yet another full-time job. I would make it a point to say, okay, this is my second job. And psychologically, I would trick my mind psychologically saying, if I don't do my work in my Anywhere Fridge, I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage. I would trick my mind psychologically and tell myself that. Because if I don't do that, then I would simply put it on a back burner like too many people do. Too many people. Do not put your invention on a back burner. Make it a second job. Make it a priority. Tell yourself, my mortgage is not going to get paid if I don't do this. And little by little, as you do that every time you get off of work, that's what I did, you will accomplish what I've accomplished now. You had asked me at one point, did I say I'm not going to work anymore? Now, that's a very critical matter because of the fact that you want to be able to not only employ your employees and pay your employees, but also, of course, pay yourself. With any startup company, what I've done is I haven't paid myself a single solitary dime. I've invested the entire money back into my company because, I can't justify paying myself if I can't pay my employees, if I can't get the product officially on the market. So still in the process of doing this, I do still currently have a full-time job. So that way I'm not taking money from my company and I'm able to survive from a job and still take care of myself from a normal, regular job. But at the same time, even though being this successful on IndieGoGo and having the money for my product to invest in my product, I can then invest all the money back into the product and not have to pay myself.
You got to do whatever works. And, at the end of the day, it seems like you have a tremendous amount of focus and discipline and determination. And how are you marketing the Anywhere Fridge? What is your strategy?
So the strategy for getting them in the marketplace and on the market officially in places such as like even Sears or Cabela's or REI or Sporting Goods, things of that nature, we are actually going out to CES 2018. And by going to the 2018 CES show, they have a number of retailers there, a number of distributors there, a number of investors, big companies that can actually put them officially on the market and into these stores, maybe even Walmart actually. And so our strategy is to ultimately get them into stores like this, like Sears, like Cabela's, like REI. In Roswell, we're actually I'm out here now. What we're in the midst of doing is we're in the midst of meeting an investor that actually might want to invest in the Anywhere Fridge company as partial ownership. And so if we decide to go with this investor, we are then going to not only have it in Cabela's and things of that nature, but we're also going to be on Amazon. We're going to be on Alibaba. Alibaba is a huge website and things of that nature. And we actually got contacted by the Rachel Ray Show not too long ago. So we're hoping from the Rachel Ray Show, it'll really go viral because she is huge.
Oh, definitely. Being on Rachel Ray would be awesome. Hey, let me ask you, what was the hardest part of this process since having the idea?
That is a really great question. And the hardest part for me, I would have to say, For anybody listening out there, the hardest part about being an inventor is, you come across your yaysayers and your naysayers. And it is imperative, it's essential to not take the negativity to heart. Because you're going to be told a lot of no's. You're going to be told, no, it can't be done. I mean, my gosh, I had to be told no so many times at the Anywhere Fridge. I remember going back 8 years ago, went to a refrigeration company, and this was in Ohio, introducing the Anywhere Fridge to them. They said, oh, that can't be done. It's not possible. And they were right. The Anywhere Fridge was not possible. It couldn't be done. 8 years ago, we did not have the technology that we have now for the Anywhere Fridge to exist. The Anywhere Fridge could not exist 8 years ago. Nonetheless, it could have been worked on. It could have been researched. But in their eyes, it wasn't possible at that time. They told me no. Even though they told me no, I believed one day that the technology would eventually be here and it could exist for it to happen. And now here we are. It's happened. It does exist. All that to say, no matter how many no's you're told, keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the big picture. Don't lose faith. Don't lose hope. Because one day, if you're perseverant and you're diligent, it will happen. And you can make it happen. And it will be done despite all the no's you're told, despite all the negativity, despite all the cynical people, all the cynics that say, oh, that can't be done, or it's not possible, or you don't have enough money. None of that matters. None of that matters when you have a passion, when you have a dream, when you have a goal. You can achieve that goal.
I want to thank you, Spencer, for being on our Invention Stories podcast. And I wanted to ask you one last question. What was the most enjoyable part? What have you enjoyed the most about it?
I'd have to say, that's a good question. I think the most enjoyable part of it is the excitement, really. The excitement of knowing that you achieved something that no one else has before. You achieved your dream, whatever it might be. You achieved your goal. You set out a goal to accomplish something in life. And you didn't just simply try it out for a couple months and give up, but you kept at it. And because you kept at it, you reaped the benefits of it. You reaped what's going to come from that. And, just going through the journey of seeing where it came from to where it is now, seeing how far you've come, and despite what happens from here to the future, in my book, although I'm not officially successful and officially in Sears or in Walmart yet, I feel like I've really succeeded because I've gotten this far and I've gotten further than I was 10 years ago. And in my book, I've really succeeded. And I think that's the most enjoyable part about it. Knowing that I didn't give up on something that I'm passionate about. Knowing that I achieved what I sought out to achieve. One last thing, I don't know if you wanted to add this in your podcast statement, but for anybody listening out there, I got to say, you asked me before what was the most exciting thing about this journey of the Anywhere Fridge, and the most exciting thing is knowing that I tried. I tried, because I am always consistently saying to anyone that asks me for advice, how do you invent this? How did you come up with this? What did you have to do? And, it all starts with just doing it, because if you never try, then you never know. And you don't want to go on in life 5 years down the road saying, oh, would have, could have, should have, because would have, could have, should haves are irrelevant. And saying, oh, you know what? I thought of that 5 years ago and I invented that 5 years ago and now it's on the market. And I could have been the successful one, but now that person is because I never tried. So you've got to try, because if you never try, then you never know what could have happened.
I want to thank Spencer Trotter for being our guest today here on the Invention Stories podcast. To learn more about the Anywhere Fridge, please visit www.anywherefridge.com. If you're an inventor and would like to be featured on Invention Stories podcast, have a suggestion on how we can make this podcast better, or would like to sponsor our show, please contact us at inventionstoriespodcast@gmail.com. We invite you to visit our website at www.inventionstories.com. Thank you very much for listening today, and please tell a friend.